tour of
Yeah, I know.
their home.
That's what I already said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catherine's working on hers.
Okay. Just, Dwayne maybe know?
He might know. He's doing
I'm
it.
gonna take this one instead.
Board Member Dyer,
Here.
Board Member Goodhue,
Here.
Board Member Pomeroy,
Here.
Board Member Hall,
Here.
Chair Croman.
Here. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we open it up for public comments, under the Brown Act, public comment for matters on the agenda must relate to the agenda item, and public comments for matters not on the agenda must relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of this legislative body. This is a warning that if a member of the public attending this meeting remotely violates the Brown Act by failing to comply with these requirements of the Brown Act, then the speaker will be muted. Having said that, are there any public appearances? Yes, sir.
Well, I have comments to raise as well.
Okay. As they relate to the property under question?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that as we go into that part of the agenda, okay? All right, any announcements? Hearing none, we'll go into the consent agenda. We have adoption of minutes for 4 of our meetings. So members have reviewed the minutes ahead in their pre-packets. So is there a motion to adopt?
I was just absent for the September meeting, so
Okay.
I would abstain from that.
Can we vote on all the 4 of them at approval of all 4 of them?
So you should do 2 motions. You can do 1, 3, and 4, and then you can come back and do number 2.
All right, so do I have any discussion on the minutes or a motion to accept the minutes as written? On 1, 3, and 4.
I move that we adopt 1, 3, and 4 of the minutes.
I second.
Okay.
Board Member Dyer,
Yes.
Board Member Goodhue,
Yes.
Board Member Hall,
Here? Yes.
Board Member Pomeroy,
Yes.
Chair Croman.
Yes. And then a similar motion for the minutes for September, item number 2.
I move that we accept the minutes for number 2, September.
I'll second.
Okay.
Board Member Goodhue,
Yes.
Board Member Hall,
Yes.
Board Member Pomeroy,
Yes.
Chair Croman,
Yes.
and Board Member Dyer is
Abstaining.
abstained. Okay.
Okay, and with that, we'll go into public hearings.
All right, well, good afternoon. The one item that is on your agenda this afternoon is a determination of consistency with the Secretary's standards for Design Study Application DS 23217. This is the Voris property. So the project is on Torres Street, 4 northeast of 6th Avenue. The property contains the historic Hansel and Gretel cottages. Hansel is also known as the Dollhouse. Both cottages were constructed by Hugh Comstock in 1924 and 25. Hansel originally was constructed to showcase the Otsy-Totsy rag dolls that were created by his wife, Mayada Brown. And Gretel originally served as Mayada's office. Both cottages are in the Tudor-style storybook architecture, and they were added to the local historic inventory in 2003. The character-defining features of the cottages include their cement plaster exterior walls, which have been mixed with pine needles and placed over burlap. Their medium-pitched roofs with undulating roof lines, flared eaves, hand-carved rafter tails. On Gretel, an arch-planked arched plank door with half-timbered sunburst, as well as fixed encasement multi-paned wood windows, French doors with hand-carved casings, and then a couple of those other items there, the French doors and the arched half window. So very significant cottages for Carmel. In 2018, the owners received approval for a nearly 1,400 square foot addition to Gretel. Again, Gretel is the cottage in the back. Hansel's the one up closer to the street. The addition does include a basement level. You can see the two ends of the addition outlined in that red dashed area. In 2018 is when they also established a decomposed granite parking pad at the southwest corner of the lot. And this parking space is screened behind a grape stake fence that also operates as a driveway gate. So the project before you is to convert the parking pad into an enclosed detached garage. This is a 6,000 square foot lot, so a little bit larger than the standard. And the garage would be located directly in front of one of the 2018 additions to Gretel, which you can see there in the background with the stone facade. So this slide shows a site plan of the parking area. The existing condition with the parking pad is on the left. And then on the right, you can see the garage overlaid on the existing parking pad. It would be set back 18 inches from the front property line and is proposed to be 250 square feet in size. The design of the garage includes a front-facing gable roof that would be finished with cedar shingles. The garage would have a stone veneer wall cladding and wood carriage-style garage doors. And this slide shows the different elevations of the garage, so the stone does wrap all the way around. So with determinations of consistency, the municipal code states that any alteration to a historic property requires a determination with the Secretary's standards. As you know, after doing many of these, there are 4 primary treatment approaches, and the one that is most commonly used is rehabilitation, and that is applicable here as well. So there are 10 standards for rehabilitation that the project is evaluated against. Minor alterations can be evaluated by staff, but major alterations do require an evaluation by a qualified professional. And so construction of a new structure on a historic property is a major alteration. Staff engage the services of Meg Clovis to review the project and prepare the Phase 2 report. And she did find that the project is consistent as it is proposed, so no modifications. So staff's recommendation is that the board adopt a resolution issuing the determination of consistency. Should the board adopt that determination, the project would move on to the Planning Commission for final review and approval. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does the board have any questions for Marnie? Any board members have any initial comments before we open it to the public? Okay. Let's open it to the public for the owner's comments or the owner's representative.
Good afternoon, Chair Croman and members of the board. I'm Brian Congleton. I'm architect for Michael and Bobby Voris, who are the owners of Hansel and Gretel and have been for the last 30 years. We have looked forward with great anticipation and excitement to come before you for your discussion of this application. This is something that's very exciting to them. You've met them on the tour of review, and I think you could tell that they could talk for hours about Hansel and Gretel, as could I. And what I'm going to do, rather than do that, is to say that we're very proud of the project. The stone on the garage, I think, will cause the garage to be subordinate to the existing Hansel and Gretel cottages, just as the addition in the back is. And beyond that, I'm here to answer your questions. And we'd love to see a discussion ensue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this matter?
Do I press this? No. Hello, my name is Garth Behrman. Oops, sorry. I live in the house neighboring the Boris's house, just below. Sorry, that was a disaster. You've got another one? Yes, so we are in Torres 3 Northeast, the one house just below. If there was anybody who would be adversely affected by this new structure, it would be us. They are incredible neighbors. They give an enormous amount to Carmel and to the goodwill of Carmel. We get probably 50, 60 people every day walking up to see Hansel and Gretel. This will be a wonderful addition because I know they will do it with their architect says in a superb manner because they really treasure their treasure that they're living in. So although it would adversely affect us with a little bit of light here and there, we don't mind at all. We're completely supportive. They're great neighbors and a great addition to Carmel. So I would wholeheartedly, with my wife, accept and agree to any modifications.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry about your microphone.
Good afternoon, members of the board and Chairman Croman. I'm Catherine Gualtieri, and I was very excited to see this on the agenda. And having visited the house, I was shocked. It was 2018 when I last saw it. I'm very excited about this and very supportive of the Phase 2 evaluation prepared by Meg Clovis. I think she did a marvelous job. I'm also excited to think that this will be the 100th birthday of this house, the first one. And when you think of a young man coming here in 1924, he comes in to see his sister and visit. He gets married, meets the young girl and decides to marry her, and he starts building these whimsical cottages that have affected all of us all these years later. I mean, it's quite a miracle that they're here, they've been lovingly cared for, and they're going to continue. So this is just a win-win for everyone. I think the Vorises will have a nice garage to keep their car in and have it stay clean, but we'll all be able to enjoy these beautiful remnants of Carmel's history, and I think that's really a win-win for everyone. I was thinking that we should try to figure out something to do this year to honor what Hugh Comstock has done here for Carmel. And I don't know if Carmel Heritage would like to get involved in that, but your board could also could have a role in that. We should try to think of a program, someone to talk about this, bring people together and honor Hugh Comstock, who lives on through his buildings. I had the privilege of renting the birthday house on the corner of Santa Rita and 6th. What an experience to live in it. It was really, my husband wasn't too crazy about it. He was more of the modern era, but I loved it. I could have stayed there forever. And it's quite an experience to see what Hugh Comstock has done for us, and I encourage you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Croman, members of the board. My name is Cindy Lloyd. I am fondly what's called now an old-timer, only because my brother died and I inherited the family mantle. I was born and raised here, and I will tell you that my initial reaction when I read about a garage going in front of Hansel and Gretel, I said, what? So I went to the tour today, and I, of course, know Brian Congleton for many years, and I was completely overwhelmed and entranced by the confirmation of Hansel and Gretel's whole property and what the owners have done. The attention to detail is absolutely incredible. And while the proposed garage will cut off a little bit of the ocean view for sunset, it is designed to integrate with the property. It's very sensitive to the property and to the overall detail and idea of the property. So it will honor Comstock in a way, and Brian's attention to detailing to echo the buildings on the property is also very, very much to be appreciated. So thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay, so we'll close the public portion and we'll open it back up to the board. Any comments from the board?
Oh, yes. I always have a lot to say about Comstocks, and every time I see that someone wants to do something to a Comstock, I get very nervous. However, in this case, I think they've done a beautiful job, both Brian and the Voruses, with what they've already done, and obviously have a knack in that regard. I do have a couple of thoughts. One is that it be 11 feet wide rather than 12 feet wide, because it does actually impact slightly the Gretel building in terms of being able to see it from the street. And we know lots of people want to come see that property because it's so amazing. And so that would be one thought I had, was to make it 11 feet wide rather than, normally it's 10 feet wide, so at least it's an extra foot. I know I have a small garage too, and it's sometimes a challenge, but to make up for that, I would suggest that you add a couple of feet on the back, which doesn't impact anything and doesn't restrict the view in any way at all. And I think that Mike Vorus wanted a place to build more birdhouses, so that would accommodate him a little more. Also, I would, Brian mentioned the grout versus the non-grout on the stone facade, and I would vote for the grout just because it looks older. Whether it is or not, I don't know. Also, just to throw out there that I would like to see it a little more fairy tale-ish or storybookish. I think if it were to mimic the roof of the non-historic Hansel roof, I think that would be great. I'm just thinking that, and I know that from a historic standpoint, you're supposed to keep it separate, and I'm sure Brian was thinking in those terms, but just the facade of the stone, I think, is enough to say this is not in keeping with the Hansel and Gretel time-wise, and that otherwise you could maybe take some license to make it a little more fairy tale-ish or storybookish. So those are my comments.
I think that the garage fits perfectly into the property. I don't see that it obstructs the house, the historic section of the house in any way. I do wish that the garage door weren't such a dark color, however. There seems to be a lot of contrast there. If it were more of the color of the stone cladding, I think I would like it better, but I'm very impressed with the whole thing, so I have no strong objections.
First, I would like to thank the Voruses and Brian for giving us that wonderful tour. It was just really a magnificent property, and as I was mentioning to somebody, I really haven't seen a restoration of a Comstock or the storybooks in such a complete, wonderful way. It really made them new again, and yet they're still part of the history in such a great way. So I really appreciate that. I agree with Esther. The proposed garage is sited appropriately, and I think it's small enough scale so that is subordinate to the other buildings on the property, the Hansel and Gretel houses. I do think we should, since we've had these discussions on garages previously, on another application, I'm sure we'll see more of them, to be a little bit clear about what we look at and what the criteria should be for how we view these things. And I think one of the things, I guess, that there's a basic thought that putting a new structure in front of a historic structure on the street should be discouraged. I think that has to be balanced with the fact that with a garage, for example, making houses and properties functional for their new owners into the future is what gives properties and these historic properties more and more longevity, and that's what we're really after. But I think we need to say, it depends on the circumstances of how we judge things. I think this property is 60 by 100. It has a lot of space. There's a lot of space between the new proposed garage structure and the historic resources on the property. And it is also figured in, thanks to a little sacrifice from a nice oak tree, put in a corner where it's not directly in front of the historic resources, which I think is definitely the design strategy to go with and meets the Secretary of Interior standards in a more strong way. So in comparison to other properties where they're 40 by 100 lots, where the new structures are in front of the old structures and really obscuring them from the street, I think things need to be done to minimize and mitigate that impact as much as possible. And I think that was the argument certainly from my position when we reviewed the previous project. In this case, we have a lot more space to deal with, and I think the location of the garage and the size of the garage is appropriate, and I think it's a great solution. I think the architect not only did a great job with the original design, integrating that the new addition with those historic cottages, but this is also an appropriate solution.
Thank you.
Oh, can I add one more thing? This is a general comment as well, not dealing with this property, but in other I'm just thinking about ways in which, if you want to discourage new structures like garages to go in front of them, maybe there needs to be a more of an incentive structure to do that. And I know in some properties where, for example, there's a garage that just wouldn't fit or doesn't work any other way, we give these waivers to take away the regulation to require the garage for historic resources that go on the inventory or the registry. And I think that's what we've done in the past, is actually let them use the extra 200 square feet for part of the structure in other ways, not in a garage. So that might be something to look at if we offer that, if you use the 200 square feet in areas that are not directly in front of your property and are certainly part of the secondary interior standards as well, or meet them, that this is a good incentive not to put something directly in front of your property or in front of your resource.
I agree that the garage is far enough away from the house that somebody who was coming by to see the houses could still see it around the garage. I think maybe I'd like to see the garage a little more storybookish looking, maybe with the Comstock kind of a roof. I know that'd be much more expensive. But overall, I think it fits, and I would approve it.
Okay. I echo Eric's comments, thanking the Vorses for their great tour today. The care and attention to detail of the two structures already on the property are probably as good or better than anything we've seen in a long time, years and years. I don't think, the project as proposed meets Secretary of Interior standards. It's viable, it makes sense. This is a couple who I don't think we need to give a lot of guidance on how to meet, historic guidelines. I think they've mastered it, and I think that we should, honor their commitment for everything they've already done, And, I think this, personally, I think this project should go ahead as requested and as proposed to us. So with that, do we have any adjustments that we want to make, or do we have a proposal, a motion to approve or disapprove this proposal?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to issue a determination of consistency with the Secretary of Interior standards for the detached garage in the front setback for the Historic Council and Gretel cottages.
I'll second.
Okay, can we have a vote, please?
Board Member Dyer,
Yes?
Board Member Goodhue,
Yes?
Board Member Hall,
I don't feel strongly, yes.
Board Member Pomeroy,
Yes.
and Chair Croman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir,
may I?
please.
My question is this. I have some ideas in my head about how we can make the structure look a little more storybookish without violating the Secretary's standards. And the ideas that I have in mind are to take the roof, make it steeper by lowering the eaves and raising the peak slightly, and by the little oriel window on the side to bounce that up as a little shed that comes above the roof level. If I do that, does that staff incur my coming back to the commission for approval, or is the board amenable to those approaches to follow your guidelines on what you're looking for?
I mean, I think we've given you approval to pursue the project as requested. If you decide you want to change that, then I think that Marnie has to, from a staff point of view, has to answer if that needs to be resubmitted.
Yeah, so from what you're describing, it sounds like it could be a minor enough change, but I think we'd want to see that, certainly before we go to Planning Commission.
Okay, and one of the keys though is that we'll end up with a higher roof height, and I know that's one of the trigger points where you say, well, it needs to be reviewed again, and I think that for me to change that angle and make it slightly steeper, I would like the commission to give you direction as to whether or not they feel comfortable with that, and we move forward to commission.
And Marnie, is there sorry, Brian, just from thinking about, is 12 feet the maximum height for a detached garage in the setback? I thought those were limited, but maybe they could be taller.
Oh, that's right, it is 12. It's 15 behind the setback, but it's 12 in the
Yeah, I
setback,
think
isn't it?
That's my memory.
You know, my memory is 12 feet wide and 15 feet tall.
Okay. I could be wrong.
But I will double
I don't have a
check.
problem with it.
I don't really think the height of the garage roof is at play here because it's in front of the 2018 addition. So it's certainly not going to block any kind of view of the historic segments of the
Yeah, I don't think
property.
it's not, I don't think it
Well,
hurts
it's
the
off to
historic
the
resource.
side enough, it's just that in order to, without unduly lowering the plate height, I can lower the plate height slightly, raise the ridge height slightly, and get a little more storybooky steep slope on
Yeah,
the
I don't
roof.
see how it
Which would be
really
lovely.
affect.
Go ahead, sir.
So the code does allow it to go up to 15 feet tall and 12 feet wide.
Okay, I stand corrected. So
Actually, you sit corrected.
exactly. But I think maybe, Marnie, if we could give our opinion, and maybe, I don't know if we need a vote on that, about those possible changes,
Okay.
and then let that be an administrative approval, so they don't have to come back to HRB as possible, maybe?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think if we agree to give the variances the latitude to make the adjustments as they see fit,
As
you know,
defined.
Yeah, as defined, somewhere between the current proposal and what Mr. Congleton just talked about. Does that sit well with everybody? So did you get that, Leah? If we we're proposing that, we agree between the proposed project and the variances that Mr. Congleton just spoke about, that if he's within those parameters and we give them the okay, it just has to go through staff for non-HRB approval, and then we can vote on something like that.
Might be prudent to ask the neighbor to the south if they have any thoughts
Okay.
on that.
All right, so we'll open it back up to the public. Could the neighbor step forward without breaking the microphone?
I think that sounds excellent. I know that the Vorrises will do it, whatever the work, as you quite rightly said, they'll do it expertly. So I think something like, more storybook would be wonderful. A great addition to Carmel. So I'm very happy.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll close it out to the board again.
I understand the roof won't be, the peak won't be higher, it'll just be steeper.
I think
Higher
he said
and
it'd be
steeper.
higher and steeper. Yeah.
Would it be best for me to amend my motion to,
Yeah, we can do that too.
or it's up to Marnie how she wants to handle
I think we keep the original motion. Let's just do the amendment. And that way we have the record of the approval for the original plan, and then we have the amendment as well. So can we have a motion for the amendment?
I move that we consider the amendment. Is that what we want to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Okay, can we have a vote, please?
Board Member Dyer,
it? Yes?
Board Member Goodhue,
Yes?
Board Member Hall,
Yes, thank you.
Board Member Pomeroy,
Yes.
and Chair Croman.
Yes. Okay, super. Can we have the director's report, please?
Sure. So just one item,
Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Just one item this afternoon. As you may recall, we were awarded a grant to do phase 2 of the historic context statement. We are under contract with Seth Bergstein at Past Consultants, and that work is underway. So you'll be seeing some progress on that this year.
And then we'll review that at a later date? Perfect.
And do we need to reconvene our subcommittee, or we had one for the previous one? I don't know if we need to set that up.
That's
again.
really at the board's discretion, if you want to establish a subcommittee for phase 2.
Okay. When will we see products coming out of that?
That's a good question. I don't have the timeline with me this afternoon, but we can certainly bring back a timeline next month.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you. Any future agenda items?
Yes. When you'll have to follow me a bit on this. When we get these emails about houses that are over 50 years old and which permits have been submitted or plans have been submitted, and we get a historic review, and then we get the emails, and we decide within 10 days whether it's historic or not. I asked Evan some questions based on the last one, and he came back with some good answers and said that maybe he would approach Marnie about sort of an in-service or training in regard to that, and how that is, like, how we determine how many windows are changed, and whether an attached garage or a deck addition negates a place as historic, those kinds of questions. And it occurred to me that, and he said actually that there could be a negation based on the fact that a detached garage was added to the property. And so I thought, well, here we are with our historic properties adding detached garages like crazy, or 2 of them in the last 2 meetings. And I thought there seems to be an inconsistency in my mind between what we okay and don't okay in terms of historic when we get these emails versus what we allow, including additional rooms and so forth. Like on the Lutz property, they had already added 2 rooms, and then we approved 2 more rooms. So to me, there's an inconsistency between what we approve now from projects that come to us directly versus those emailed projects in which, you know, we aren't as involved, we don't see the property as much and things like that. So I would love to get some sort of training on what makes something too adjusted or too changed to make it historic versus what we're doing here behind the dais. Did everybody follow that? Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that would be up to Marnie and Evan and Catherine and whatever to, I guess, think about how we might address those issues.
Most certainly. You know, and we do have annual training responsibilities as a certified local government. And so that would be something that we could certainly see if we can get someone to come in and speak on that topic and utilize that as one of our training opportunities as well. So we'll definitely look into that.
Great, thank you.
Any other?
I'm going to be partaking
Yep.
in the 9 to 12 training that Brandon sent out to us, I guess. I don't know if anybody else is going to be doing that. If not, maybe I could bring back to you the jewels of information that I have obtained
That would be great.
from participating.
That would be great. Okay, any other future agenda items? Do we want to formally set an agenda item? I think the recommendation by Catherine about doing something to recognize 100 years of Comstock is a good one. Do we want to discuss that here in this board, or do we want to punt that to another body to do? Any thoughts on that?
I like the idea.
Yeah.
But I think maybe in partnership with Carmel Heritage and.
Yeah, there was,
And what-
I think she talked about, I was asking her if they would open the house for the Bach Festival, I think, and someone asked me to. And she said, well, we're going to have our 100th anniversary next year, and we're going to plan something with probably Carmel Heritage or whoever. So I think the Voruses already have something
Okay.
maybe in mind.
And it's, yeah, their particular home that's having the 100th anniversary, but obviously that's in the prime time of most of the Comstocks in the area. It'd be interesting to.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
You know,
Open the
where do we actually set the anniversary, or how do we, you know, if it's, there's probably a decade or so of the storybooks that he was doing, or not, if not more.
It's true, including all of them, huh?
Could we ask the staff to do some kind of assessment on when the majority of them were built? And then we can maybe use that, talk about that next meeting.
Sure, we can bring that back.
Well, I understand that this was the first, right? We were looking at the first Comstock today.
I thought it was the second.
Well, there were first and the second, I think.
Oh,
I think that's right. So
Yeah.
that would be the anniversary of the storybook, and
Yeah,
Before his workshop.
yeah.
and it certainly would be amazing is to have the Comstock neighborhood all be opened up and celebrated. That would be, I don't know if we can work that, but because they
It would
have
be great.
they have the studio around the corner, another one around the corner, and then the other several houses in the block between, I guess that's 6th and Ocean.
Comstock Hill, yeah.
Yeah. So that's something to think about. That'd be great.
Okay, so maybe we can discuss that at our next meeting. All right, any other future agenda items? Any other comments? Okay, if not, let's adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So Marnie, did we? Oh, sorry.